The human mind holds infinite complexities and sometimes profound darkness. What shapes a monster? What drives their chilling compulsions? We seek the answers. This is Anatomy of a Predator. In the quiet foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains, a horrifying secret lay buried. A remote cabin, seemingly innocuous, hid a descent into pure evil. What happened there wasn't just murder, it was an orgy of sex crimes, torture, and death. This is the story of Leonard Lake and Charles Ang, and the chilling depths of their depravity. The date was June 2, 1985. A seemingly routine shoplifting incident in a lumber store in Wilseyville, California, would crack open one of the most horrific serial killer cases in American history. Leonard Lake, one of the men caught, swallowed a cyanide pill and died shortly after being taken into custody. His accomplice, Charles Nang, managed to escape. What police found next at Lake's remote property, a concrete bunker, 50 pounds of human remains, rotted clothing, jewelry, and driver's licenses painted a grim picture. The full scale of their crimes was staggering. At least 16 confirmed victims, though some sources suggest the number could be as high as 11 to 25. The victims were men, women, and even a baby. The evidence unearthed included not just remains, but also handwritten journals detailing Lake's chilling plans and, most disturbingly, videotapes.
And the main purpose, hence, of the building will be the imprisonment of a young lady who probably at this moment is unknown to me.
These tapes didn't just hint at the terror, they showed it. Lake and Nang weren't the typical lone wolves often portrayed in fiction. They were a team, two men who fed off each other's darkest desires. The mystery wasn't just who they killed, but why, and what monstrous impulses drove them to kidnap, SA, and torture innocent people, including friends and family. Tonight, we delve into the anatomy of these predators, seeking to understand what created them. Our journey into the darkness begins with the men themselves. Leonard Lake was born in California in 1945. His upbringing was described as very odd. He developed an obsession with adult material at a young age, even photographing his own sister undressed. Lake served 2 tours in Vietnam with the United States Marine Corps. During this time, he was diagnosed with a personality disorder. Charles Nang was born in Hong Kong in 1960. His childhood was reportedly troubled. Nang also served in the Marine Corps, but was dishonorably discharged for desertion and theft. He was known for being quiet and well-behaved by former Marines who knew him. The paths of these two men converged through a magazine advertisement. Lake, with his increasingly dark fantasies, was seeking a specific kind of partner. His chilling plan, outlined in a video clip, was to have an off-the-shelf partner, a woman he could use any way I want and simply put her away when bored. He described his plan to capture youthful girls. When Nang and Lake met, a dangerous dynamic began to form. Nang met Lake when he was 22 or 23 years old and looked up to him, trusting and respecting him. He appreciated that Lake accepted him as a friend. Lake's neighbor observed that Lake frequently reprimanded Nang and spoke to him in a degrading, domineering, and verbally abusive manner. Nang seemed very timid around Lake and behaved like he was trying to win Lake's approval. The defense during Nang's trial would later argue that Nang suffered from dependent personality disorder and was merely attempting to mirror and please Lake. This power dynamic, with Lake as the seemingly dominant figure and Nang as the subservient one, would become a terrifying engine for their crimes. The precise timing of their first collaborative murder isn't explicitly detailed, but it's clear their partnership quickly escalated into a violent crime spree of SA, torture, and murder. Lake, already harboring dark fantasies and planning to build a bunker to hold slaves, found in Ning a willing, or perhaps easily influenced, accomplice. Ning began living with Lake for a period in 1982. Lake kept belongings, including tools and ammunition, at Ning's San Francisco apartment. This wasn't just a friendship, it was an integration into Lake's disturbing lifestyle and planning. Lake even sent Ning photos of the bunker under construction while Ning was court-martialed. While Ning claimed he didn't know it was for slaves, the partnership was deepening. The crimes began, one building on the other, often targeting people connected to them or lured under false pretenses. Lake and Ning employed various methods to ensnare their victims. Harvey Dubbs, for example, was lured by an ad to sell video equipment. Lonnie Bond Sr. and Brenda O'Connor were neighbors. Once they had control, the victims were often handcuffed and transported to Lake's isolated property in Wilseyville. The property itself was integral to their method. Lake had built a concrete bunker, a hidden place of confinement. Victims were held there, often shackled, enduring periods of captivity before their eventual murders. The duo controlled their victims not just physically, but through psychological manipulation and threats. They forced them to comply with degrading demands. To cover their tracks, Lake and Ning would often dispose of the bodies on the property, burying them in shallow graves or hidden areas. They also took steps to make victims appear to have simply left or moved away, using their cars or accessing their bank accounts. This methodical approach to luring, controlling, killing, and concealing reflects aspects of an organized offender typology.
War within myself between what I want to do and what we might call the decent thing to do. And for the moment, the decent thing to do is rest.
Beyond the basic methods of capture and killing, Lake and Ning engaged in actions not strictly necessary for the crime itself, their signature behaviors. These rituals reveal the core psychological needs driving their actions. Central to their signature was the use of videotape. Investigators found a tape titled "L Ladies, Kathy, Brenda" buried on the property. This tape, along with others, showed the victims shackled and terrified. On these tapes, Lake and Ning interrogated and tortured Kathleen Allen and Brenda O'Connor. They explicitly stated their intentions. Lake's journal entries also provided insight, though the defense struggled to get the full diary admitted in court. It outlined his plan for Operation Miranda, detailing his long-held fantasies of keeping women hostage in a bunker. These acts were not just about murder, they were about absolute control, power, and sexual sadism. The videotapes allowed them to document and potentially relive these acts, feeding their desires. Ning even admitted his participation in the video, stating he was young and adventurous and didn't exercise independent judgment, but also claimed he couldn't confront Lake. Lake's statement on tape that he would bury Allen like Michael Carroll, and his plan to phase Mike off show their actions were part of a deliberate, horrifying plan. Ning participated actively, telling O'Connor they were pretty cold-hearted and she was totally ours. He cut off her clothes with a knife. They forced victims to shower, calling it a house rule. For a time, Lake and Ning managed to avoid capture. Lake, particularly, was described as meticulous and smart, though the source also notes luck generally plays a significant role in solving such crimes. Their efforts to conceal bodies and create false trails for their victims demonstrate a level of planning aimed at evading detection. While the sources don't explicitly detail an escalation in the type of violence over time, the sheer number of victims, at least 16, possibly up to 25, indicates an escalating crime spree. Their partnership allowed for the capture and control of multiple victims simultaneously, as evidenced by the M Ladies tape featuring 2 women. The team dynamic itself facilitated greater brutality compared to lone offenders. The elaborate operation unraveled unexpectedly. On June 2, 1985, Lake and Neng were spotted shoplifting from a lumber store in San Andreas. Lake was apprehended and identified, but before he could be questioned extensively, he ingested a cyanide pill, ending his own life. This desperate act was consistent with statements Lake had made previously about taking cyanide if caught. Neng escaped from the lumber store. Police searched Neng's San Francisco apartment days later, finding items belonging to victims, ammunition, and a map with a victim's street circled. Lake's death led authorities to his property in Wilseyville. The grim discovery of the bunker and the human remains buried nearby confirmed the horrific scale of their crimes. Meanwhile, Neng fled to Canada. He was eventually arrested there on July 6, 1985, again for shoplifting. At the time of his Canadian arrest, officers seized a handgun that had belonged to Lake, as well as handcuffs and ammunition. A young boy who had seen Neng camping in a park led detectives to a dugout area where a victim's camera and towel were found. The evidence discovered at Lake's property and linked to Neng initiated a lengthy legal battle to extradite Neng back to California to face charges. The case of Lake and Neng offers a complex view into the minds of serial killers, particularly those who operate in teams. Lake's history included a personality disorder diagnosis and fantasies of survivalism and controlling women. Neng's background involved a troubled childhood and a dishonorable military discharge. At trial, psychiatric evaluations were presented. The defense expert suggested Neng had dependent personality disorder and merely mirrored Lake's actions. However, the prosecution highlighted Neng's active participation captured on the videotapes. This case highlights the dynamic in team killings, often referred to as folie à deux, where shared madness can lead to unimaginable horror. The 2 men encouraged each other, leading to increased brutality and the torture of victims. Lake and Neng were not just killing, they were acting out severe sadistic fantasies, finding pleasure in torture and control. While antisocial personality disorder and psychopathy are often linked to such behavior, the specific interplay between Lake's dominance and Neng's apparent need for approval created a uniquely destructive force. Neng's denial of killing anyone and claiming he was just an observer contrasted sharply with the evidence showing his active participation, especially on the L Ladies tape. Charles Neng was finally brought to trial in California. It became the longest and most expensive criminal prosecution in California history, lasting 14 years and costing over $10 million. The prosecution's key evidence was the horrifying videotape showing Neng's direct involvement in the torture and control of Kathleen Allen and Brenda O'Connor. Neng's defense maintained that Lake alone committed the murders and Neng was merely a witness or observer. Neng himself testified, denying involvement in the killings and claiming he couldn't confront Lake. However, the jury heard evidence of his admissions of involvement to a jailmate, including details about the victims' deaths. After a lengthy trial, the jury recommended the death penalty. Judge Ryan followed the recommendation, sentencing Neng to death. As of recent reports, Neng remains on death row, pursuing appeals. The appeal process alone was estimated to take years and millions of dollars. The case of Lake and Neng brought widespread attention to the nature of serial murder and the challenges of investigation. It highlighted the importance of crime scene analysis and the disturbing insights that can be gleaned from offenders' rituals and attempts to document their crimes. It also touched upon the controversial issue of criminals profiting from their notoriety through books or media rights, a concern addressed by notoriety for profit legislation, Son of Sam laws. Ultimately, the Lake and Neng case leaves us with the chilling question: what made them do it? What possessed them to inflict such cruelty? While psychological and investigative analysis can piece together the how and offer insights into the who and why, the depth of their sadism and the horror of their actions remain a stark reminder of the darkest aspects of human behavior. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the complex and often unsettling world of serial homicide. As we've seen, understanding the true nature of a predator involves examining myriad factors, from early life experiences and psychological foundations to the chilling details of their methods and motivations. Exploring cases like the calculated actions of Leonard Lake and Charles Yang, or the psychological complexities revealed in other offenders, allows us to gain a deeper insight into the anatomy of a predator. If you found this exploration insightful and want to continue unraveling these dark mysteries, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the minds of serial offenders.